before the absolute success of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, there was Larion with Baldur's Gate 3. And what the AAA industry took away from that success was absolutely nothing. They chose to ignore it, they chose to laugh at it, and they chose to pretend it doesn't exist and it doesn't matter. And needless to say, that got a lot of people pretty upset, including me. And now we have Clair Obscur Expedition 33 that is also completely shoving the faces of all these pretentious AAA studio losers in the sand, in the mud, with its success and its mechanics that are no longer wanted by players, mechanics that can't sell games. And what are they gonna do this time? Will they pretend it's not a big deal again? Will they pretend that, oh, it's actually not that great? Well, we're gonna see, but they are definitely gonna cope hard.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, today it's time to talk about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now, as you guys are aware, this is a video game that I was looking forward to for a while. And once I finally got my hands on it, this is one of the few video games that I had high expectations for, and it somehow blew past those expectations to the point now where I am going to call this my absolute, without a doubt, unless something
I did not have high expectations for this. I thought it's gonna be average. I saw a lot of problems with it, mostly which are not actually resolved in the game, but honestly, it doesn't matter because the game's awesome. And I'm so happy to be wrong in these situations. I thought it's gonna be mid. I thought it's not gonna beat Persona, but here we are in a better world.
crazy comes out this year that changes it, this is my game of the year. There's no doubt about it. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is exactly what Final Fantasy modern games should have been, and it's crazy that it took a team of 33 people, some of which were ex-Ubisoft developers, in order to create this masterpiece of an RPG, and we are going to talk about it here from Windows Central that says Clair Obscur Expedition 33 utterly destroys Square Enix's gaslighting over Final Fantasy turn-based combat. That is mainly what the focus of today's video going to be when we are talking about Square Enix, their overall ridiculous sentiments around turn-based combat, and how they have completely abandoned what could have been an insane modern version of Final Fantasy that they could have released, very similar to Nintendo and Power World situation. They decided to abandon it, and now they're getting felted by it. So let's get into this article, guys. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button.
By the way, all of these breakout hit successes gaming wise are in genres that AAA analysts and all of these useless losers that get paid way too much money in the first place are saying, oh no, this will never work. Oh no, players don't want that. Are you sure about that? Maybe you want to take a rain check on your stupid opinion.
But I would greatly appreciate it and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. Now, I've already written my full review for Expedition 33 on Steam. I'm about 13 hours into the game. I obviously plan to fully complete the game, but I had to get the review out there because
how much is the full completion of the game? Not full completion, but even story completion of the game. I heard it's like 20 hours or something. It's ridiculous.
After playing the game for 13 hours and experiencing a massive plot twist, not even 1/3 through the game, I gotta tell you, this thing is absolutely insane. It really, truly is a masterpiece in video game history, especially over the last 5 to 10 years. Now, before we get into the article and talk about Square Enix, let's talk about the overall notion about turn-based combat not selling, right? So Square Enix made a statement talking about how turn-based combat doesn't sell and how that is going to be the reason why Final Fantasy is going to go to the action combat. And ever since Final Fantasy went to the action combat, the games have been not as great, right? They have not been selling nowhere near as much. People are just not as interested. It almost seems as if they abandoned a majority of their fans.
I think they released the data on this that the last Final Fantasy or the remake of the action style game was a flop. People just don't like the Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is way more about the story than the action. And when you're trying to make a fighting game like Final Fantasy, you're dedicating so much trying to make that the fighting kind of feel good and shit that you are missing out on so many other things. Also, turn-based combat is amazing. That's honestly one of my favorite types of combat in games. I'm not gonna lie, I like slow and methodical.
in order to gain a small minority of new fans. I think they were hoping that the action combat would bring in way more new people.
Sound the horn of modern audiences. Did you sound it? I don't see the audiences. Oh, you did. Shit, sound it again. Maybe they didn't hear it. Ah, ah. Oh, still nothing? How can this be? It's almost the tale's end all this time at this point, isn't it?
To offset the people they were going to lose who were looking for the more pure Final Fantasy with the turn-based combat. Now, Expedition 33 is doing extremely well right now. The game over the weekend is currently at 121,422 peak concurrent players. The word of mouth is spreading.
And yeah, this is all word of mouth. This is all word of mouth. Now, granted, I think Clair Obscur did itself a massive blow. This number could easily be bigger. Oh, and by the way, Clair Obscur proved my calculations for copies sold with the correlation of players is pretty on point. Because when I said, yeah, this looks like 500k copies sold, they pretty much came out and said, yeah, this is 500k copies sold. And, you know, now this tracks with my average calculation of 1 million copies sold. Everything of this is kind of on point. And, well, at this rate, they're probably going to hit 2 million copies sold in, what, a week? Or something like that. It's possible. It's pretty close, most likely, at this point. Because remember, the copies sold for games that have an extremely good reputation are higher because people are just like, okay, I'm gonna buy this, I'm gonna put it in my library, I'm not even gonna play it, but you know, I need it in my library so I don't forget about it. Okay? Because currently I, for example, can't play this really at the moment because I have Last Epoch to play, okay? It is what it is. And I still need to finish Tainted Grail the Fall of Avalon. So, you know, kind of fucking stacked on that, you know? Plus, I need to do Scarlet Enclave, the raid. Not anything else though. But yeah, it's kind of stacked. So this has to take priority after those two things. Well, maybe I'll push Tainted Grail back a little bit more. So who knows? Who knows at this point? But it's still great.
Over this game, and
oh no, but let me finish my point. Again, when this game came out and we saw that day zero, not day zero, but you know, 1 day before reviews, all of them were so bad, and it was the typical shill armada. You had Luke Stephens, Maddie, Skill Up, uh, well, Extra Life, or whatever they're called. You had literally the shill armada all saying, it's a masterpiece. Dude, those people saying it's a masterpiece probably got so many people thinking, oh, this is not going to be good. Especially considering they're not talking about the story, and in a turn-based combat game, story is king. And all of them are like, oh, there's a twist? I can't talk about the story, but there's a twist. Yeah, that tells me so much, losers. And then they're like, look at the combo. Not combo, but look at the combat. You can combo. And I'm like, yeah, thank you for telling me the obvious. Dipshit. Thank you. I couldn't see. How would I ever know this without you telling me? Those reviews, I think, hurt the game a lot. I think those reviews definitely hurt the game a lot, considering that most well-known shills all called it a masterpiece and game of the year. It seemed so fake, and when they don't tell you anything about the story, they completely ignore talking about the story. They didn't tell you that you will love the characters. They didn't tell you that you will be involved with them, that you will care about them, that they are normal people, that they act normally, that it's not something straightforward. It's complicated, and you know they didn't say any of this. they could have said that and completely avoided giving any spoilers, and that would lend some credence to this game. But instead, they're like, the combat is turn-based. I think that damaged. I think that really damaged the game. And now it's picking back up because everyone's talking about how great it is. Again, if this game doesn't suck you in literally in the first like 30 minutes of gameplay, shit, I don't know what to say.
The number keeps going up and up and up every single day, and rightfully so. The game is really that good. It is being universally praised everywhere on Steam, on Metacritic. I don't really care about the mainstream critics. Their reviews don't matter to me. All that
Who
matters to me
cares
is what
about them?
gamers are saying and how they are viewing this game, and everybody is talking positively about this game so far, with the couple of sentiments being about the performance of the game, which I understand because I also experienced.
There are a couple of bad things. So let me tell you how great this game is, but simultaneously how actually many things are actually amiss. So let's talk about literally the prelogue because there's literally nothing to spoil there, right? So there are things like flipping. There are things that just don't make sense. For example, it's like, okay, let's wait here until the paintress does her thing, and it's like it it's not like, oh, the thing is starting right now. Let's watch. It's it's like 3 hours pass and it's like fade to black and now you fade back in, which is kind of stupid. The game does have issues like that, but they are so ignorable. When the game starts, when you're running and following, the dialogues can cut in and out incorrectly, and that's pretty stupid. But it doesn't matter because it's fine. You know, it has a lot of issues like that, but again, it's still that good that no one cares about this.
That, and I put that in my review as a con for the game. Sometimes the performance is not that great. Turn-based combat has been proven to be selling, especially when it's done properly. This game incorporates an insane amount of action combat mechanics like a dodge system, a parry system, a jump system to avoid low attacks, things of that nature. Metaphor ReFantazio also had a similar turn-based combat system and also sold very well as well. It is very clear that these games do very well when they are done properly.
It's kind of crazy that Metaphor had a lower peak than this. Wow.
And yet, for some reason, Square Enix wants to avoid that altogether to chase Western trends. But in any case, it says a new JRPG from France has destroyed.
Well, there is a business incentive and a business logical reasoning why this is, by the way. Because, well, the most people play action style oriented things. Slow and methodic is kind of pushed to the wayside by most. And the big sellers are fast-paced shooters and shit like that. So, going fast-paced shooter theoretically is safer than, going something that was popular 20 years ago.
Square Enix
now again, that's just the logic they are using. I can, by the way, guarantee you that's 100% the logic that they are using here when picking which market target.
Shida gaslighting over turn-based combat and reminds us how corporations kill creativity. I agree. Big corporations absolutely hinder creativity, which is why when I discovered that this game was made by 33 people and it looks this good, sounds this good, plays this good, tells an amazing story, how the hell was this possible with 33 people? It's because 33 passionate people got together and said, we are going to do this unhindered by Big Daddy Corporation. And that's exactly what happened here. They created one of the most amazing turn-based combat systems that I have played in a long time, and coupled with a game that is a beautiful game. The world is unbelievable. The story.
I don't know about that. The world is nice, but there is a lot of genericism to it, though, I will say. Again, it's nice. It's still a win, but to say that the overworld and shit is, like, super detailed and things like that, no, not really. Not really. Most of it is very generic. But it still looks good.
Is engaging. Like I said, I got to this plot twist moment about, in my 5th stream last night, and I'm still thinking about it right now. I woke up thinking about this fucking game, and it is unbelievable. You think you want it, but you don't. That was a comment from former Blizzard president Alan Breck when responding to players who were asking for a World of Warcraft Classic mode, which, by the way, he said that, and guess what ended up happening? Blizzard ended up giving players World of Warcraft Classic, and
I actually also thought that he's right about this. And by the way, I will say this. He would be right if Blizzard combated botting. If you could not buy gold in Classic World of Warcraft, the player base would not exist. Every classic iteration of World of Warcraft, Season of Discovery, blah blah blah, all of it, literally revolves around bots and buying gold. Absolutely no way about this. If they removed botting, people would have been. I'm convinced 90% of the player base would quit. 100% purely convinced 90% of the player base would quit. But since botting is gonna be there and it's an integral part and it will never vanish because Blizzard's not that stupid, right? We will never see it. But again, I firmly believe if you remove the ability of people to buy gold, all of Classic just implodes. Implodes! People will be begging for the WoW token, okay?
And guess what was played insane amount when it actually came out, which was classic mode in World of Warcraft. People wanted it,
By the way, it's still doing good, considering everything.
people got it, and
Again, there's literally Anniversary, there's SOD, there's so many things. I'm playing SOD.
proved Alan Brack wrong. Then again, it says notorious among World of Warcraft fans not only for pretty arrogant and callous dismissal of an entire section of the fan base, but also because Blizzard eventually capitulated.
Also, did I buy gold? No. I know the secret to eternal wealth, and that is full cloth and light leather, and medium leather in a lot of cases. Okay? Those three items, just posting them one time a day on the auction house for 5 minutes, have generated me all the gold I had ever needed in this game. Not even joking. It's literally printing money. I don't do professions. Well, actually, now I do professions, and now I have more gold than I would ever honestly need. It's really not hard.
And gave players what they wanted. Now, under new leadership, World of Warcraft has changed its philosophy to giving fans exactly what they want. A shocking revelation, I know, but the game has never been in a better spot, with a variety of modes for different types of players, killing off its previous one-shoe-fits-all, dispassionate telemetry design philosophy. We're getting even player housing. It's perhaps iconic when the main reason we're getting player housing in World of Warcraft is due to competition from a competing MMO, Final Fantasy XIV. World of
True,
Warcraft was forced to
actually.
throw their playbook out of the window to meet fans where they were, rather than what the
I'm convinced, by the way, Blizzard will F up housing.
data was telling them. Blizzard's I can't say that word, telemetry must have been told them that nobody wanted player housing, but the popularity of the feature in Final Fantasy XIV certainly suggested otherwise. Final Fantasy XIV innovated where World of Warcraft had failed and won itself a large and thriving fan base of its own to back that innovation. But for whatever reason, Square Enix began ignoring its own successes when it comes to the mainline Final Fantasy games, which in recent years have been on steady decline.
Now, to be fair, the Final Fantasy MMO is actually having a lot of problems now. And one of the most interesting problems is the fact that healers are being made redundant. Every class can heal itself. So healers are kind of not necessary anymore in Final Fantasy. It's hilarious.
in popularity and relevance. And I absolutely agree. This is a big problem with Final Fantasy. And it is because I wholeheartedly think that they gave up former fans in the hopes to garner new fans that would carry them over to the next generation. But to be
Bro.
quite frank, there just wasn't enough. Their action combat is not good enough to truly garner action combat fans. Not many of them anyway. So they gave up all of their fan bases and the people who were growing older with Final Fantasy from way back in the day who were still playing the modern ones now, myself included, they gave it up to chase the action combat. And to be honest with you, I have never been interested
Thankfully, I was never a Final Fantasy guy.
in any of the recent modern Final Fantasies. Final Fantasy 16 was an overall good game, I will say that. And from a storytelling perspective, it definitely was returning to the classic.
I think I remember people saying that about Final Fantasy 16, but it still didn't. It's still undersold tremendously. It's a good game, but I mean, not good enough.
Final Fantasy storytelling, but it just was basically Devil May Cry with a Final Fantasy skin on it, and the combat system was wholly unengaging, and I just wasn't that interested in it. You basically spam the same freaking skills for the most part, and even when you unlock new summon abilities, it just doesn't matter. Like you're just playing Devil May Cry. That's how it felt. Square Enix most recent Final Fantasy projects, namely 15, 16, and the 7 remake and rebirth, have found decent success, but I would argue none of them received the fanfare some of their predecessors enjoyed. That's true. The Final Fantasy VII remakes have proven there's still magic to be found in the franchise, even if they flooded Final Fantasy VII
True. Wasn't 7's remake a this, by the way?
Rebirth with dull Ubisoft-inspired open-world drudgery. I agree with all this. That's crazy. Where there's been less success in its true Final Fantasy games, 15 and 16 are both neither what I would describe as classic entries in the series and represent something of a low point. Square Enix fully abandoned what made the series great, opting away from what fans want in favor of chasing other popular games in a desperate, misguided attempt to get more money. And I agree, man. The problem is that it has surpassed 1 million copies sold. And that's not 1 million players engaged, by the way. These are
this is copies sold.
Ubisoft developers doing the exact opposite of what Ubisoft was doing. This game has sold 1 million copies, and they're even so...
I'm pretty sure, by the way, 1 million copies for this company is probably break even at the bare minimum. At least it probably should be.
Transparent to the point where they even put a fucking cliff note here on the bottom explaining the numbers. That this number includes units shipped to retailers and does not encompass our awesome Game Pass players.
They don't exist. Wait, actually, let's check. Xbox Live player games. Let's see. Let us see. What do we see here? Fortnite, blah, 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 blah. Assassin's Creed Shadows is 15. I guess that's a win in their book. Destiny, South of Midnight. I'm not seeing Clair Obscur here, though. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Let's click on the new tab. I'm also not seeing it, but again, Xbox. Oh no, there it is in rank, like something like rank 20 for new. Jeez, that's not good. That is not good. Oof. Yeah, that is definitely not good. In the free-to-play section, yeah, they're also not making it. Well, it is what it is. Again, why would you ever play anything on Xbox? Xbox is designed to be, you know, something you do on your fridge when you're bored, and that's pretty much all she wrote.
Thank you.
Anyway, that was Hypnotic, 10 out of 10. Bye!